Is enlarging your D going to be worth it? All right, this is such an important question, and I am so glad that you clicked on this video because it tells me that you have a decent level of self-awareness and you're not going into this potentially for the wrong reasons, and you want to maybe see how I go about thinking about this. And I'll definitely explain at the end of the video what my experience has been and whether or not I think it has been worth it in the long run to finally achieve the results that I have achieved. And if you're wondering, I've gone from 16 centimeters in bone pressed erect length all the way to 20 centimeters. In some videos I might say 20.5, but to give you context, I reached that, and usually with this type of goal, you will lose some results if you stop too quickly. There is also tapering off, but ultimately I've been able to achieve around 20 centimeters in bone pressed erect length. My erect girth went from 14.5 centimeters all the way to 16.5 centimeters. So pretty decent for me. I really enjoyed it. Now, I absolutely love this quote by Tony Robbins, my self-development OG. The quote goes, "Success without fulfillment is ultimately failure." Man, I don't know about you, but that just hits home for me. No matter what you are pursuing, whether it's something in business, a personal goal, relationship goals, specifically bedroom goals like this one, if you go about doing things the wrong way, or you take shortcuts, or heck, you even burn bridges, or other people get hurt in the process of a goal, ultimately you will always know that deep down. Subconsciously, you know that the journey was not completely fulfilling. You know deep down that it's not as fulfilling as it could have been if you stayed true, if you stayed honest and transparent. So that quote is such great context to start this video, because it's going to lead into what I would consider, in my opinion, 3 of the most vital considerations going into this journey. Now I want to lay these out because just like many other videos I create and will want to continue to create, these are things that I wish I knew when I began. And it seems like this type of content for this specific goal is very rare, if not non-existent, right? Except the ones I'm creating. There are just so few people that will go into this kind of depth, and I think it will ultimately change the entire outcome. If you end up getting your size goal, but it came at a cost from either an emotional perspective, from something else you neglected in life, maybe the relationship got a little rocky just because of this goal, ultimately, that's going to head towards more failure than success, even if you did achieve the size goal. And later in the video, I'm also going to explain why it is going to be tremendously more difficult to achieve this type of goal, this size goal specifically, if you are not doing it from a good place. And I'll explain what I mean by that throughout the video. So with that said, I'm going to explain 3 vital considerations that I think you should not be without. All right, vital consideration number 1. This is a big one. I'm just gonna say it. It's, what reason are you doing this for? What is your motivation? And this is so important, and it's going to also lead into the other 2 vital considerations, but this is priority number 1. And I'm not talking about the why, because you're going to need it to actually stay motivated and continue this journey. That's one thing. But really what I am talking about is, are you doing this from a place of ego, or are you doing it from a place of love? Are you doing it because your current partner's ex was, had a couple inches on you and you feel jealous? Or are you doing this from a place of interest, curiosity, just another way to develop yourself personally that you would think would make you feel more fulfilled, especially in this specific arena, so to speak, in the bedroom? Will it give you more confidence? Now I'll give you a bit of my story just to give you a little more context, so that at least you know how I could even empathize and come up with these points in the first place. When I was 16, I got my first glorified pump. That was kind of like my introduction to the PE world. And pumps can be also used for hardness, but my goal, because back then the general consensus was, a pump had a lot to do with enlarging the size, even though a lot of the marketing is very misleading. Maybe that's a topic for another video. But back then, at around age 16, I hadn't even slept with anyone yet. So I don't know if it had to do with maybe pornography or something else. It wasn't really from a place of ego. It was, like I said, more from like curiosity, like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. But who knows, from memory, maybe it was out of ego as well. Nonetheless, that glorified pump ended up turning my lad into a marshmallow. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I definitely didn't know what I was doing when it came to actually getting results, especially with the pump. Again, that is also another topic for another video. Now, that first experience probably led to a few, but ultimately I threw in the towel. I thought maybe that was the only way to enlarge, and then who knows, because I couldn't get anywhere, I thought it wasn't possible, or I thought it was a scam, or just maybe the information wasn't there to help guys actually get results with this kind of device. Now, 2 years after that, I'd had a pretty long-term relationship for about 2 years, and at this point I got my first experience. So this was like my proper first relationship where the person where you obviously have intercourse on a regular basis. If you ever wonder why I don't say most of the actual words, it's because YouTube has a funny way with the actual terms of the actual body or the terminology. Anyway, I'll try to keep it tame. Intercourse. So obviously, as I was having intercourse, I also knew that that particular partner I had much more feelings for, and I guess jealousy sprouted out of that. So I wanted to pick up some more devices or other means to enlarge myself. So this was definitely coming from a place of insecurity. And back then, man, 18 years old, I'm sure you could agree, when you were that old, or maybe you're still that age right now, man, life can definitely be an emotional roller coaster, and you've got definitely less, I guess, logic capacity. You've got less bandwidth to mentally and emotionally process things. Now, looking back in hindsight, it was probably one of the bigger reasons I actually couldn't get results. Not only because again, looking back in hindsight, definitely wasn't following a proper protocol, but even if I was, I think the emotional state that I was in probably would have hindered my results dramatically. And I'll get to what I mean, the second vital consideration, to further elaborate on that point. So with that said, never really got results. Push forward to about 24, my next long-term relationship. I guess I got my first experience of feeling a good mix of ego, but at the same time love. Now, at that point, I had been training physically in the gym for 8 years. All right, so in that regard, I developed myself, my physicality. I knew what it was like to not only train from a place of ego and looking at others, but at the same time, like when you do something for that long, like it just becomes your norm. And I guess with that length of time pursuing something, you also gain an appreciation of others. When you don't know what you don't know, and like you're just starting off, let's say if you're entering the weightlifting world and you look at others, you're like, shit, like I wish I had that. There could definitely be a level of jealousy, but when you work at it for 5-10 years, you know how difficult it is, and thus comes that appreciation. So then after that time, when you look at someone that's built, like you have that much more of a sense of how much it took. Now I say all that because that's how I guess I got to a place where pursuing increasing my size was almost in this like weird balanced place. There was definitely ego because the partner at the time, she had a couple of exes that were tremendously bigger than me. And obviously, that made me feel something like I will never reach places that, other guys have reached. So there was kind of like this deep pit in my stomach that was like, crap. But at the same time, even though the analogy is not perfect, those guys were naturally that big. But I wanted to work on myself in this regard. Why I say that is because I kind of knew how to balance the emotional state of working at something between ego and love. Now, what do I mean by love? You can definitely want more out of yourself and it be from a place of love. It be from a place of you're not necessarily content but you're happy with yourself, you're proud. But it doesn't necessarily mean you don't want more, because you know you can push those limits even more, right? I think that's a really cool place to be. Now, I have no idea where you are in your journey, whether you can actually empathize with that analogy or the story about the gym. But I just wanted to give you that context because I think it was the beginning of me working on this particular goal in the right way. Because you can definitely work on this for the wrong reasons and alternatively the right reasons. And as you'll see in the rest of the video, it's not only important, it is almost a non-negotiable that you work on this from the right reasons and from the right place. So while I had that kind of pit in my stomach, like, these guys have reached places that I will never be able to reach with my lad. In one way, that kind of sucks. But then in the other way, the place of kind of love, not necessarily for them, but it was almost like an appreciation of how it would be and how it would feel to have a size like that, how fun it would be, right? Do you see the difference? So instead of being like, I want more size because I want to be, 1 centimeter larger than, that motherfucker, like, that's not cool, right? Rather, if you're able to come at it from, I wish I could have that to experience, what that would be like. Here's the thing, size is not everything. I often say that a guy with a massive D, if he is an asshole, that's just an asshole with a big D. That's it. The only way that you're going to know if a larger size is going to be better is comparing you to you. I know it sounds cliche, but ultimately you just want to be a better version of you. Now, some of you might already be thinking like that, and that's great. But for those that aren't, you really got to consider who you are as a person, who you are as a whole, because there are so many more things that comes before the size, like the things you do, the things you say, even prior to the bedroom. That all makes the bigger difference. And by the time you get to the bedroom, like, just that alone, it might be just incomparable to someone else that didn't have all those things, but they had another couple of inches. And all you're focused on, if you're working at this goal from a place of ego, is, yeah, but they had a couple of inches, so it must have been better. Maybe not. Maybe it was absolutely trash. Maybe they didn't say the right things, do the right things to get them warmed up, make them feel throughout their entire body, not just where you were penetrating. Alright, intercourse is so much more than that, and I hope you know that. I just want to say that so it's reiterating to bring this home. So the only thing that you should really be comparing is you to you. Will the you that I hope is always continuing to evolve and get better, is you with a larger D better than you with a D that wasn't as big? Now, I just hope that that perspective alone enables you to see things a little differently, so that as you're going after this goal, whether you are pursuing it or whether you are going to pursue it or thinking about it maybe, you're able to approach it from a different mindset and potentially now a different reason. Same goal, but there are just so many different ways you can be coming at it, which will not only influence your motivation, but it will literally influence your results, which leads me to the next point, which is, what is your emotional state while pursuing this goal? Another way to think about this term or question is, how are you feeling during the process, whether it's a daily all the way to a second-by-second basis while you're actioning any method to do with increasing size. Now, as you can imagine, like I said earlier, the first consideration literally leads to the second. Totally influences the way that you will be and feel while you're actioning everything to do with PE and this goal. So, I want you to imagine you do things from a place of ego and jealousy or envy, and a place of insecurity where, as you're actioning, let's say you're doing a method to increase size, and the motivation is you're not good enough, you're not worthy unless you get to this goal. Now, this particular pursuit is very interesting when it comes to your state. And like I've said earlier, it will literally influence your results. I want to compare it to gym though, because this is where a lot of people get confused. And I'm telling you now, you can get enormous motivation, emotionally fueled by any emotion to execute or action a goal. Take gym for example. If you were doing it out of a place of insecurity and you didn't feel worthy enough unless you stacked on like 10 kilos of muscle, here's the thing. In the gym, it might actually be beneficial. If you felt rage, if you felt anger, or fear of not being worthy enough, your body has the capability to tap into enormous energy, just crazy amounts that will push you to do things in the gym, because those emotions will trigger almost what is considered a fight or flight response, which pushes blood to the limbs, and it's almost beneficial to do it in the gym. However, ironically, in this goal, with this pursuit, if you are in an emotional state, anything less than neutral, okay, so anger, fear, resentment, guilt, anything under, lower vibration, your tissues will all be tightened up, including one very important, imperative, and usually overlooked tissue called the fascia. The fascia is everywhere in the body and it's connected to every part of your body. Now, this is influenced on a local and a systemic level, meaning you could apply some force or intensity to the tissues of the D, and the fascia around the D will tighten up, but it will also signal the rest of the body that, this particular area of the body is going through something right now. So it might actually trigger a response. Right, that's usually if you do too much. All that is to say, your emotional state can affect your biology and physiology, including not only tightening up the tissues and fascia around the entire body, but also the lat, which is going to make things a lot more difficult, because this particular tissue is also it has so many different roles, but it also acts as a protective tissue. For instance, if you damage the muscles in the gym when you work out, the fascia actually tightens up so that you can't incur any further damage, because if your muscles are affected and you need to fight, flee, or freeze, that's going to affect your survival. So the fascia does its job to make sure that you can't incur further damage, and even if that means limiting your movement to protect you, then it will. Now remember, an emotional state that might even trigger that fight or flight response can literally affect you on a systemic level, which means it's affecting every tissue, including the lat. Now here's the thing when it comes to everything to do with intercourse and procreation. Procreation comes after survival. If the body and the biology had two rules, it's survive and procreate. And if you're not in a state that is optimal for survival, aka you're still struggling, you're worried, you're paranoid, you mentally and emotionally feel like there's a saber-toothed tiger out of the cave, even though your saber-toothed tiger might be deadlines, stress, relationship issues. The body probably thinks that you're not in an optimal state of survival, therefore we can't go to rule number 2 or step number 2, which is procreate. If the environment, which the body picks up through your senses and everything else, is okay and survival is taken care of, that means everything geared and fuels procreation will be provided. Does that make sense? If there is a threat, it's a threat to you. And if there's a threat, there's also a threat to any procreation, such as children. Alright, so the body's going to shut that down and make sure you take care of survival first. Even if you are the one who has created the emotional state that is less than neutral. Because maybe you're operating from a place of ego and insecurity while pursuing this goal. This is very important to consider, because if you are approaching it from a place of ego and insecurity, you are triggering that response every time you touch a device or a method, or even touch your lat in a way to increase the size. Alright, so as soon as you get into it, you'll be thinking, not worthy. All those insecurity emotions will be triggered. And thus, tightening everything on a systemic level, including the lat. Which is why, if we go back to the vital consideration number 1, what are the reasons you're doing this for? If you're doing it out of a place of love, out of pure curiosity, a place to actually develop yourself because you want to be a better version than you, Like I said, love, it's a higher vibration, it's a higher energy. I know it sounds cliche, but you really want to do it out of higher vibrating emotions. Even if it is joy, excitement, just anything that is above neutral. And I know that's going to be really difficult for some of you, but for me personally, it has honestly been like a switch when it came to the results. Plus, you just feel so much better doing it from that place, especially if your reason was your current partner's ex had, a couple of inches more than you. You might even keep this a secret from your partner. Like the whole reason you're doing this in the first place. Now, if you keep this a secret, you're lying to the very person that you want to be as honest and transparent with, right? And like I said at the very start of this video, any goal that you pursue, any time you don't pursue it in a way that is true, that is honest, you may not feel fulfilled. Like if this causes issues in your relationship because they find out you've been lying to them, like isn't that an irony? Not only will you struggle to get the results because it does not feel good to lie, but ultimately if you get the results, even if you do, you add a couple inches and then your partner realizes this whole time you've been keeping this kind of part of your life, which is just about a full-time job. Like it's going to be a struggle to, keep a secret. But if you managed to do this, full-time job on the side and keep this side of your life hidden from them, let's say you do get a couple inches and they find out, now they are going to have an emotional tie, a narrative in their head that this new size doesn't even feel good because how they achieved the size was through lie, was through almost deception. And like I said, if your ultimate goal is a couple inches and you achieve that, but you lied about it, that's not fulfilling and thus ultimately failure. So no matter which way you look at it, you really want to approach this for the right reasons, in the right way, and in the best state possible. Alrighty, I hope the video has been valuable so far. I was in my car. As you will be able to tell from, if you've been obviously watching my content for a little while, you may have noticed that I completely went MIA, missing in action. Didn't, because essentially the videos just kept getting better in quality, and I think I developed almost this perfectionist mindset. If it wasn't perfect, I wouldn't make it or create it, and that led to me not doing videos at all. Now I'm just trying to get out videos whenever I have the chance, including when I'm driving. So yeah, I've got to drive an hour or two every week, so we'll fit in those videos as well. So as we were saying, I hope the video so far has been super valuable, and this leads us to the third and final vital consideration, and that is where this goal is as a priority among all priorities in your life. Now, I feel like this is going to be one where people throw up their hands and be like, oh my God, like don't give me a lecture mic. But honestly guys, I've personally, all of this has come from personal experience, and I want you to avoid the pitfalls, the downfalls, the potential negatives of this journey, because let me tell you, it can suck you in. It is such, not only a taboo and controversial subject, but it can be an emotional roller coaster for so many people. I mean, the drive that you can get as a sexual human being, and this has everything to do with that, it can pull you in, it can motivate you almost to crazy levels. All right, I have no doubt that a lot of guys are putting things off, looking at other priorities in life as lesser than growing the size of their D. I totally understand if you are super insecure, whether you admit it or not, if you are going through just an emotional roller coaster because of your experience, because of your size, either in the past or how you think about yourself just as, self-perspective. I totally get it. I understand. But at the same time, like I said at the very start of this video, that quote that I love so much is, success without fulfillment is ultimately failure. I want you to get to the end of this and actually achieve your results. I really do hope you achieve just the best results you can for your lifestyle and circumstances. And it just changes your sex life. But I want you to do it in a way that it is also going to be fulfilling, that by the time you get to that outcome, you can look back and successfully say, like, I have done everything else that I think I should have, and this was, the right level of priority, right? I didn't, put off my relationship. I didn't stop talking to friends and going to hang out with people, or I didn't neglect work, because man, it can be a very slippery slope. If you start putting this before things and things start, going sideways in your life, a few things can happen. If you don't end up getting the outcome that you desire while you've put off other things, holy crap, that can really dig a guy a hole, a deep one. Again, an emotional roller coaster, to say the least. But even if you did get the outcome, you know, what other bridges did you have to burn? What other things do you now have to gain momentum on again? Maybe it's worth it, but maybe it's also not. I kid you not, why I even mentioned this before is this can be very emotionally fueled. Like to the point, it's almost like a drug. And you might get to, you know, the end of the goal and think like, why the heck was I doing that? It's that powerful. Like sex, especially for guys, is just that powerful. And this has everything to do with that. Like you're doing it for a better outcome in that very emotionally driven, you know, biological, natural process, motive. So just be careful. A lot of people are just like, this is gonna be going over their head. But I hope this is landing for a lot of you. I hope you've actually experienced what it is like to be pulled into, let's say, a sexual encounter and then after almost regret it. Like that same motive, that same drive can be driving this particular goal. And I just want to warn you because you may very well let other priorities go just for this. And by the time you realize it might be too late or a long time might pass and you're like, holy crap, like, what the heck was I thinking, right? I want this goal to be an accompanying process. That is why I built a brand, not only that I wish I had when I began so I could, you know, learn fast to get the results a lot quicker, a lot safer, but I built products that I wish I had to make this journey an accompanying process, all right? There is definitely a potential to get results with manual methods and all that, which takes like all your time and effort and attention. However, I didn't really want to do that. All right? I wanted to do things as passive as I could. There's this kind of dream goal with business. People want to be an entrepreneur, build a business that's completely passive, make it rain money. I mean, it's not really going to be like that, honestly. And the same can be said for this goal. Like it can be relatively passive if you do everything right, if you learn the right process, if you execute and action everything you need to with particular tools that works best for you. You can do like you don't need to put things on the back burner, okay? Sure, there's a process of, you know, learning, and then it takes a lot of time just getting through that practice, getting in the reps, just to almost make it feel a lot more fluent. And then once you do, like it just about happens on autopilot, but you need to go through that grind in the beginning just to get familiar with all the devices. And then for the most part, like honestly, if you do this properly, sometimes this goal just reminds me how much I'm putting in an effort to get to the bedroom and to make that experience that much better. Does that make sense? So I really hope that you can build it into your life, integrate it in a way that you will feel fulfilled. Please promise me that you will remember this video. I can already tell so many guys are like, God damn you, man, you talk a lot. But I'm trying to hit this from every angle that I can just to make sure that you do not do things in the incorrect way. Again, I'm speaking from experience because I have done things for the wrong reason. Ego and, you know, almost not feeling worthy enough, which ironically, looking back in hindsight, maybe that's why I didn't get the results back then. And I was doing it in a state that did not benefit the results, the outcome and the process. But also I went through, you know, even keeping this a secret from the partner that I had at the time, and then they found out. Oh man, not fulfilling at all. Like the most backwards way that you could go about this goal especially, all right? So please promise me you won't do that. And that's a difficult one. That's easier said than done. Telling the truth, keeping your either current partner, future partner in the loop. All right, if this is important for you, you'll find a way to do it. And if they don't understand, I mean, that's a bridge to cross when you get there. But I think if they can't understand that particular goal, maybe they're not the right person for you, or maybe you just need to sort out what your priority is. I can honestly say from experience, the partner after the one that I kept it a secret from, I wouldn't have even known if I explained it to them in the best way that I could, keeping communication at the best levels, whether or not they would have been accepting or not. I already lied, and that just, that set off a cascade of, negative associations around this whole process. So that was bad. But the next partner, I kept them informed like I never wanted to lie again. The most horrible feeling, and that horrible feeling puts you in a state, and then that affects the way that you go to the bedroom, all the way to even erectile dysfunction. How ironic, how stupid, right? Anyway, so I kept it as honest as I could, as transparent. I just laid out all my goals. Did they find it weird? Fuck yes. They thought it was the weirdest thing ever. Like, they just about thought I was a freak. But this is the funniest thing. When I ended up getting results, the first centimeter I gained, they started asking me when I was doing my next session, how much I'm doing it. It was almost like they were alluding to, is there anything that I can do to help you, get a little more results? So, it might even start off where the person doesn't understand until they experience your results, and then they're like, okay, I changed my mind. That might be the case. It may not, but it also might be, right? Often when you do something and someone else finds it weird, they are often looking at it from a perspective of what I would do or what I wouldn't do. In other words, what they would do or what they wouldn't do. So if they wouldn't do that thing, for example, if you have a female for a partner, they couldn't imagine that because they don't have a D to be hanging weights off, all right? So they obviously find it super weird. All right, most women, maybe even some guys as well, but I think they would be more empathetic because they have a D and they could just imagine that, whether or not they want to pursue the goal or not. But yes, as you can imagine, they can't imagine that because they don't have a D. So just keep that into consideration, but keep communication at an all-time high. Keep them in the loop. It's going to feel that much better. You're going to feel fulfilled by the time you get to the end of the journey, because even when they experience the results, you've been honest the whole time. Oh, that feels good. That feels good. All right. You won't have erectile dysfunction going into the bedroom because you lied and because you kept it a secret. You'll be raging, right, in the bedroom, and you'll have more size. They will honestly be like, oh my, please keep going. That is the best situation to be in because they're on your side now, all right? They're on your team to get more results. That's when communication becomes so easy with this particular goal, because you could literally say, hey, I'm going to do a PE session, just like a gym session, but you're doing PE. That's when it gets beautiful. It's, in my opinion, it has almost made the relationship in the past stronger than any other relationship that I've had in the past, because it's almost taking this taboo and controversial topic and process and then just making light of it. Right, so you have this almost deeper connection with this particular person. So that's really cool. I don't know if everyone will be the same, but when you have someone, pretty much in anything, when someone can understand what you're doing, even if it's weird to them or most people, and they support you with that, it feels good. So I hope that helps, guys. I really hope that brings a holistic, a very well-rounded way to look at this and approach it, because I just want you to do it for the right reasons, be in the right state, and keep it among other important priorities. All right, I believe it's definitely down the list, but to be able to achieve this goal, man, for me, it has just made an absolute difference. I noticed when I was a centimeter longer, not to mention girth is amazing, but to add 42% more volume, I believe that you can only ever compare you to you, and me, that I know me, that is only ever bettering myself in every aspect of life. Me with a larger size, 42% larger, and bettering myself with sexual health, with relationship dynamics, with everything I do before and after any intercourse, plus the 42%. I am a much better man. I know that I'm bringing more pleasure to the table, to the bedroom arena. So yes, for me, it has been worth it. And this is what this video has been about. Is it worth it? It's not just about the outcome, but it is how you get to the outcome. Like I said, you can get to the outcome and feel like trash about it because of the way that you went about it. All right, please be careful. I hope this video helps. For more detailed videos like this one, go check out totalmanperformance.com, including uncensored tutorials and so much more, including a whole PE video course. That's right, enlarging your D, a whole video course on that. If you dedicated 30 minutes a day, not even sped up, 30 minutes a day, every day for 4 weeks, you would get through something that has essentially taken me over 15 years to understand, to experience, and put it in this video format. So go over there, hope you check that out and gain even more value from that. As always, be the man you know you can be. I'll see you in the next video.